fellow Rotarians, I would like to introduce to you my daughter, Brianna Owens. She and I made a trip to Colorado in the spring, in August, in the fall. And I'm going to let her tell about her adventure and just explain a little bit about how she went about doing it and her life. So this is Brianna Owens.
I will say I have a lot of pictures, so I get to talk to your backs, which is fine with me. I'm Brianna Owens, as she said. I grew up in Hicksville, obviously, but I now live in Fort Wayne with my husband, and we are full-time RVers. So we live in our fifth-wheel camper on my sister's property. So we get to help out with her kids a lot, and a lot of fun. Maybe someday we'll hit the road and travel across the country, but all in time. Okay, we'll start that way. I work landscaping. I worked for a landscape company for 7 years, and I was just looking for something that gave me a little more freedom. Landscape requires a lot of hours, and I was working 12 to 15-hour days. And the landscape manager at Sycamore Hills Golf Club in Fort Wayne approached me and said, "Hey, we're looking for someone just like you. Whether it's you or not, that's okay, just let us know." So 2 years ago, I started working for Sycamore Hills. It's a private golf club in Fort Wayne. I'm the landscape grounds, clubhouse grounds, and I do mostly maintenance and all of the flowers and seasonal decor there. Go to the next one. And that's just the pro shop there with some of my spring flowers. The nice thing about working for a golf course, I work about 8 hours a day, which allowed me plenty of time to train for my races. Something I wasn't able to do with working at the landscape company was have a ton of time to run and train for events. So I'm mainly going to be talking about Pikes Peak today, which is the trip that my mom and I did in August. My aunt did it in 1995, and it's kind of been a goal of mine, but just getting the training down, it takes a lot of training to prepare to run up a mountain. So switching jobs was really able to give me the time to do that. Go ahead and switch. After work, 2 days a week, I coach for Girls on the Run. Girls on the Run. It's an after-school program for girls ages, 3rd to 5th grade. Their core values are to recognize our power and responsibility to be intentional in our decision making. It just teaches girls to embrace differences and find strength and that connectedness in friendship. Teaches about joy and optimism and gratitude through words, thoughts, and actions. So that's just something I like giving back, and it's running, and running has been a huge part of my life. So it's not a competition, we don't compete, it's just life lessons, and then we do running afterwards. And the girls are training for a 5K through the, I believe it's an 8-week program, 8 or 10-week program. And at the end we do a celebratory 5K, and this is at schools. I mean, it's across the nation, but right, I do the Northeast Indiana, and I taught at Canterbury School, and then St. Elizabeth. You can scroll through. So these are just some of my girls. That was at the 5K. I think there's 20 different schools in Northeast Indiana that each have groups, and we all meet at the end for the 5K. The dog decided to join us that day. These are just some of the girls. It's really fun. I like being able to give back. I probably started running in junior high with my dad, and it's just really fun. The girls start out really shy and timid, and then by the end they're crazy, and it's hard to get them to stop talking, but it's good because they're excited, and just to see their accomplishments is really rewarding. a little bit about Pikes Peak. Like I said, my aunt did it in '95, which I was 8 years old, so I didn't really think about running it then. But it was always a goal. One of the requirements was to have a prior half marathon under your belt, which I never really wanted to do. Who wants to run 13.1 miles? But I started running and worked up to that goal, and now I have 14 half marathons under my belt, Pikes Peak being one of them. The mountain is 14,115 feet in elevation. Hicksville is 761 feet in elevation, if that gives you a little bit of a viewpoint there. In 1893, Catherine Lee Bates began the Words to America the Beautiful while she visited Pikes Peak. And in 1891, the Cog Railway was the first passenger train that made it to the top of Pikes Peak. That is the trail that I ran. That's the Pikes Peak Ascent. It started in 1956, and it was actually a challenge between smokers and non-smokers. I have not been able to find anywhere who won the challenge. I'm going to bet the non-smokers, but that's just healthier lungs. So the bottom of the screen there, that's the start, and that's in Manitou Springs. We ran through the town, and then that was on roads, and then we jumped onto a trail and worked our way clear to the top of the mountain. It's the third longest running marathon and half marathon, just behind Boston and Yonkers, which are both big marathons. In the course of the race, it was 13.3 miles, and I climbed 7,815 feet in elevation. That's on Saturday, is the ascent. And then some people are crazy enough to do the marathon, which they run up, and then they turn around and run back down. And then the really crazy people do the ascent on Saturday and turn around and do the double, or the marathon on Sunday. And they are known as doublers. Preparing for this race took a lot of research. This is one of the pictures that they have on their website of just how quickly the weather can change. On the left, those runners were finishing in 4 hours, and then the runners finishing in 5 hours were finishing with snow and high winds. So it was just a lot of preparation on my part and researching the mountain and researching the race, just to be prepared for if that was the situation I was in. That's a picture of my Aunt Diane and her trainer Liz. They did it in '95. Diane did the ascent, and I believe Liz actually did the double, so she did the ascent and then the marathon the next day. I did get to see Diane in the spring, right after I had signed up for the race. It was good just to share stories and get her perspective again, and she said it was really fun to dig through all of her training and pull up pictures from her race. And like I said, it took a lot of preparation. The first thing I did was sit down and make a 20-week training plan, which I love doing, so it was a lot of fun for me. And then I had to research hydration and electrolytes. The race can take up to 6 hours. That's the time limit you have to do the race. And there's different checkpoints along the way that you have to be at, or else they turn you around and you have to go back down. If you get to a checkpoint too late, it's not like they come and pick you up. You have to turn around and go back down the mountain. So I really had to be prepared for, if I didn't make that, I needed to make sure I had enough water and hydration and electrolytes to be able to make it back down the mountain as well. That's just another, I went through a lot of different energy gels, electrolyte drinks, and power bars to prepare me. I had to make sure my stomach would react well as I was running, eating and running don't always go hand in hand, but when you're running for 5+ hours, you have to think about that. This is a treadmill simulation. Who here has ran on a treadmill? You ever messed with the incline on it at all? I challenge you to take a picture of this. And then the percentages on the right-hand side are the grade of the treadmill. So this is someone went through, I don't know how many years ago, and made a treadmill simulation of the race, figuring out the different grades. And so I use that a lot at the gym just to prepare my body for the elevation. A lot of weight training, core training. Keep going. I did a lot of spin classes, which really worked my legs and prepared them for the race. Different core training. Keep going. I did a lot of hill climbs. That's in Hicksville. Not the biggest hill, but it worked. And just a lot of resistance band training. I would put it around my ankles like that and then get into a squat position and walk sideways for minutes and minutes at a time. And then May, I started working with my different electrolytes and power bars while I was actually running. I would take over the treadmill for about 2 hours at the gym, sometimes stopping halfway through just to change clothes from sweating too much, or the treadmill only works for about an hour at a time and then has to take a break, so I'd have to switch treadmills so I could continue my training on the next treadmill. As I'm working my muscles that much, I had to roll out and use a lot of different balls and foam rollers to keep my muscles loose. I did a lot of stair climbing at Homestead High School just because it's close to work. I would run to stadiums for an hour, and then I'd run around the track, and then I'd go back and run more stairs. That was my gear on an average day leaving the house. My lunchbox, my gym bag, my coaching bag. I took a lot of preparation and thinking through my day to prepare myself. And along the way, I had other goals that I met. I didn't plan on running 15 miles in training one day, but it happened, and it was an exciting little achievement. Just more gear. You can flip through these. I did a practice race down in Indy. It was a half marathon trail run, just to prepare myself for uneven trails. And that is all of the gear that I packed just for the run itself. It took a lot of preparation. I tested not only my food and my water and hydration and all of that, but I also had to test the clothes I was wearing. Did I like wearing a hat or sunglasses better? Did my hair work better in a ponytail or in a braid or a bun? Just that crazy stuff that I didn't want to have to think about on race day. That's my first view of Pikes Peak through the airplane. It's kind of when the nerves start to set in a little bit. In the background there, that's Pikes Peak. That's the view my mom and I had from the cabin we stayed in. I had a lot of friends back home write encouraging cards. Diane sent me a card. Just a lot of people behind me supporting me, which was really exciting. Even my home gym put something up on their Facebook page while I was gone, saying good luck. That is Charlene Aldridge. She is also from Fort Wayne. She has ran for 30-some years the Pikes Peak Ascent and has doubled it, I think, 15 or 20 times. So I had actually talked with her. Three Rivers Running Company in Fort Wayne gave me her. They couldn't give me her information, so they actually called her and said, hey, we've got someone in town that's doing Pikes Peak. We know you've done it. If you're interested, give her a call. So I was able to talk to her actually before the race. Never had a chance to meet her. She gave me a lot of hints and tips from her races. She said she had done it in years where it was 60 degrees when she finished, and years when it was negative something when she was finishing, and it was snowing and sleeting and cold. And so it was really good to get her first-hand experience. And then the night before the race, there was a question and answer session, and my main question was, is she here and can I meet her? So that's meeting Charlene. Just a few last minute text messages being sent off before my race started. Getting ready to go. They had predicted, I think it was, the race was on Saturday. Thursday night they put out a weather report for the summit, and they were expecting 2 to 3 inches of snow on Saturday, which was the day of the race. And they were saying if you didn't have proper gear with you, pants, gloves, hat, jacket, they weren't going to let you go past a certain point if the weather was too bad. So I quickly had to change my plan of what I was going to carry with me. I had hat and gloves, and they did allow you to do a bag check, so I packed really warm gear in that, and they just took van loads of everyone's warm gear to the top. So I had my really warm gear in that, but I did want to carry what I could with me without weighing myself down too much. Can we go to the next one? I had a bit of an emotional breakdown before the race started. I had just been looking forward to doing it for so long, and it was so much training and so much hard work that my mom figured she'd get a picture of me crying my eyes out before the race started.
Something happened here just a minute.
I did gain composure. I was able to turn that emotion into energy to run. Just make it. I'll go to the next one. That was my first view of Pikes Peak. So that was once the race had started. I think I was 7 miles yet to go, and it was still that far away. A little bit closer. I stopped and took way more pictures than I probably should have, but I had so many people supporting me and so many people behind me that I wanted to be able to share the experience with them when I got home. I probably could have shaved 10 minutes off my time if I wouldn't have stopped to take pictures. This is kind of hard to see. The lady, you can see her red sleeve. She is actually blind and had 2 guides leading her step by step through the race. So it was really, that's the first, I believe the first blind person to run the course. And it was amazing to be able to experience being around her and listening to her being guided through step high, there's a big rock, step around it, march. That's how they would tell her what the trail was like. And I can't imagine doing it. It was hard enough being able to see where I was stepping. That was 4 miles to go, taking in an energy gel and some water. This just kind of shows the terrain a little bit. This is when I was first getting into the alpine zone, so above the trees. As they always say, if trees don't grow there, why would we want to run there? But it was for the experience. That's just kind of the bottom left corner. That's actually the trail. It was like a crushed stone that we were actually running on, but the scenery around it was just amazing. A lot of times I wasn't really even running. They limit how many people can do the race, but it's so steep. A lot of times we were walking fast until I could get to a flat spot or a spot where the trail was wide enough to be able to pass. This is kind of hard to see, but if you can, I wish it was a little bit brighter. You can see the trail of people that just follows that ridge there at the top. So It was fun looking ahead. Runners are known for wearing their bright colors, and you could see, I could look up the mountain and see all the colors in the trail that I was going to be doing. In this picture, I'm looking down at where I'd been, kind of in the center of the picture. You can see a little W. That's actually the trail that I had just run. So somewhere down there I had started, and it was really, I tried not to look back too much, but it was very rewarding and gave me energy to keep going, knowing that I had already climbed that high. It's just taking it all in. There ended up being blue skies, some clouds, no storm clouds, no snow. I believe the temperature on top was still around 30 degrees, but it was sunny, and that did wonders. You can't quite see it in this. I believe the top of that was my first sight of the finish line. I think I still had about 2 miles of climbing left to do at that point. The last mile is the steepest, and it's known as the 16 Golden Stairs. It is way more than 16, and it's not really stairs, but it's the steepest part at about 15% grade for the last mile. So your legs were screaming, your heart was pounding, and it was at this, above tree line is when people kind of started drifting off. You'd see them sitting on the side of the trail because oxygen was getting less and less, and they were either struggling, unable to breathe properly, just needed a break because it was so steep. And the last mile was really when I was able to pass people. I guess my training kind of paid off. There was a lot of people that just couldn't go any further. My mom waited at the top. I think we didn't really have a plan B for if she had to go down the mountain because of altitude sickness and if I didn't make it to the top, so we just kind of hoped that we would see each other once I got there. She waited for about an hour. I think I had slowed a little beyond less than my goal time. But she was able to catch me. That's in the white hat going through the finish line. My fist pump. I did cry at the end. It was training well paid off. I finished in 5 hours and 27 minutes. And she was able to capture me getting my medal at the end. That's her and I at the Pikes Peak Summit sign. It was very exciting to see her there. As I got towards the top, I started scanning the crowds of people looking for her, and I couldn't see her, but she knew what I was wearing, so she was able to spot me. These are some pictures that my mom took. That's everyone that was just at the summit waiting and cheering on their runners, whether it be family or friends. That is everyone's warm gear that they had sent to the top of the mountain in the vans, and thank goodness I did, because I don't know if you've ever worked outside when it's really cold, you get sweaty, and then once you stop working, you get really cold. I put on my hat and gloves immediately, my jacket, and my warm pants. And that's it. I climbed 7,815 feet in elevation, and it took 5 hours and 27 minutes. That's my last picture, Mom. The only thing I would do differently is make a training plan for when I get back. I worked for 20 weeks. I had a plan of what I was going to do every time I went to the gym, and then I got home and I'm like, I don't really know what I'm going to do. So I did work on speed work, and I was able to do my fastest half marathon in September at 2 hours and 8 minutes. So it's just kind of been a summer of different accomplishments for me, and hopefully I can go do that race again. And this is my training book. I kept track of what I did every day, so if I do the race again, I can look back. All my research of the mountain, my research of all the, kept good records, so I have it for next time. Hopefully next time. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Was there Should say a track or a road or something for the spectators to go up?
There is a road that goes to the top, and there's also the cog railway. That's I think it's a two-car train that goes to the top, so they could either take the train or drive the road up.
There's one picture that looked like it was a call.
Yeah, yep. So that's how my mom got to the top. She didn't run with me. And it was cold.
It was cold, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd gotten up, she said a couple hours ahead of time, and you just sit there and just sit on the mountains and just watch runners and stay warm. It was fun.
How many people in the race?
They limit, I'm trying to think, they limit the marathon to 600, and I think the half marathon is a limit of like 1,200.
Quite a few people.
Yeah. That's what, once we got started, they do wave starts, so the faster people start first so they can get ahead of everyone. I was in the 19th wave out of 20. So by the time I started, there was already so many people ahead of me that it was kind of like a fast speed walk. It wasn't really running, but...
It's very steep in some spots. Are you ever afraid of your height or just...
Not really. I've done a lot of backpacking and hiking, so being on the mountain wasn't very intimidating. And the trail was narrow, but it was never like a cliffside on each side of the trail. So there's always rocks and everything around. What do you have?
Did you like deal with any injury during your training? And if so, like how long did you rest for? Or?
I didn't have too much injury. I had some digestive issues, which were not fun. But that was all part of figuring out what I could eat while I was running, what to eat beforehand, the night before a big run, what I could eat and how much to drink. Because when you're running, you need to keep fluids in you, but how much? So most of it was that. Injury had prevented me from doing it in years past. I had fractured my foot one year and then was in a car accident and went through rehab, which prevented me a couple years ago from being able to sign up. But I really made sure I strengthened my hips because it's kind of like climbing stairs for 5 hours. So really made sure my hips and quads were strong and ready, which really helped.
You mentioned it was 30 degrees on top. About what was the temperature at the bottom when you started, the differential there? A lot of differential in temperature?
It was quite a bit. Do you remember? It was in the 50s.
It was chilly because still had my vest on, and it was in the 50s, but there was a 5-hour time difference too from when she started to when she ended.
And so I started
And
at
you're ascending.
7 o'clock in the morning, so by the time, it was afternoon by the time we got to the top. And it did snow, I think, Monday.
By
So,
the time she was finishing, they were telling us the snowstorm's coming in. As soon as your runner gets done, get down off the mountain. And then they showed pictures of the peak the next day, and it was covered in snow.
yeah.
Just
Which
that
was
fast.
I'm glad I didn't have to run through that. I was prepared and ready, and after I like climbing, and I like climbing to see the view. So my big thing was, I don't want to get to the top and have it be so cloudy that I can't see anything. So I was very thankful for the blue skies and being able to see for miles once I had reached the summit. And yes, I will do it again. Yes.
I stayed overnight in a cottage in Big Bear, California one time, and we went out for a walk in the morning, and I'm not sure what height I was, but I thought it was about 10,000. And all at once I stopped talking. It was thin air, and I didn't realize it.
That was my main question when people heard what I was training for. How are you going to deal with the lack of oxygen? There really isn't anything I can do to prepare for that. There was nothing. And they say even if showing up a few days beforehand is not really enough time to get used to it. They said if you could show up 2 weeks beforehand and spend couple hours on top of the mountain and drive back down, and then go spend a couple more and drive. I didn't have time to do that. I had a job. I could only have so much time off work. So they said it's almost better to either show up a day or two beforehand or 2 weeks ahead of time. So I never really felt like I wasn't getting enough oxygen. I felt pretty good throughout the race, and a lot of people didn't. And I know someone that was able to finish before the cutoff time, but they had gotten oxygen along the trail, so therefore they were disqualified from the race, which was very devastating for them. But they finished. So in their book, they did the race, they just didn't have that time and they didn't get their medal or their shirt. Yes?
For the people that couldn't make it all the way up, were there places where they kind of bail out of the race and get on a car and go back down, or was it all or nothing, you had to get to the top or the bottom?
You had to get to the top or the bottom. So there were 3 or 4 different checkpoints. They still had aid stations along the way with water, Gatorade, and some of them even had like pretzels for salt intake and carbohydrates. And trail runners are known as food junkies, so there were M&Ms and Skittles and gummy bears. I didn't really take any of that because I didn't train eating any of that food while I was running. But at those checkpoints, they were looking at the time. I said, okay, if you're not here by 2 hours in, we're not going to let you continue because there's no way you'll finish in time. So if you didn't make it, you had to turn around and go back down. One of those checkpoints was, I think, 9 miles in. So if you didn't make it to that point, if it wasn't too late, they would tell you just to go to the top. You were still disqualified, but getting to the top was easier than going 9 miles back down. But if the weather had gotten too bad, they would have turned everyone around. So when I've trained for 13 miles, I could have ended up doing 20 plus to get back to the bottom. So I kind of had a plan for that as I was packing my power bars and everything too, of, okay, if I do have to turn around, I need to make sure I have enough substance to get back down. Any other questions?
Your mom there?
Yes, it did. Yep. Encouragement beforehand. I kind of got in my don't mess with me race mode of I have too many thoughts in my head right now, don't talk to me. And she could see that in my face, so she stayed quiet and helped me out. And then knowing she was at the top waiting for me, those last 3 really hard miles definitely helped. And then being able to talk through the race immediately afterwards was a lot of fun. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
My honor today to bring the archery team from the high school and their coach, Robin. And so I turn it over to Robin, and she can keep us busy for at least 2 hours, she said.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for inviting us again this year. It's always nice to come and show off my kids. Usually I bring my seniors, but all 3 of my seniors this year are right now at 6th grade camp up in Michigan. So our archers are multitaskers. Most of them are in a lot of other activities. So finding time for archery is kind of premium for us. These kids all come in at 6:30 in the morning for a weekday practice, and then they practice Saturday mornings too. So our club has grown from, we started in about 2009-2010 school year, and we've grown from about 8 students to this year we have almost 60. So that's good for us. Fairview's Archery Club was the one that got us started. They encouraged us to start a club so we can shoot together and have little competitions and stuff. So Fairview's kind of the premium club in the area got everybody going on this. They right now, at one point, they had like 125 to 130 students. Right now, this year, they have about 112, I think. So this year, we've got about 7 tournaments. So far, we've been to 3. In October, we went to Holgate. Our high school team placed 2nd place, and our middle school team placed 2nd place. And we had 1 student, Morgan Fogel, who placed 1st place in the middle school girls individual division. In November, we went to Tenora. Our middle school team placed 3rd place there. And Tenora also had a elementary only tournament to where we could get a lot of the elementary kids together to shoot where they wouldn't have an opportunity otherwise, because all of our area has grown so big that when we invite everybody, it's a long day for everybody. And this way they had just the elementary kids, so they all felt more comfortable shooting against each other. We had 1 student, Colin Inkrat, who placed 3rd place in the boys division that day. And then this last Saturday, I don't know if any of you were out there or not, we had our annual Fairview Hicksville tournament, which this year was at Hicksville. We had right around 400 archers go through there. And as I did a count on the admission table coming in, we charged only $2 a person because we keep the costs down so that people can afford to come, bring their families and see what archery is all about. We took in over $1,200 at the admission table, so that means at least 600 and some paying people. And we had students 6 and under free, so how many other little kids were running around there, I don't know, but it was a pretty busy place. But we had 11 schools compete. Our high school team placed 3rd in the high school team division. And we had 1 student, Gary Thatcher, who placed 5th in the individual division for middle school, high school boys. Next month in January, we go to Montpelier. In February, we go to Fayette. In March, we go to Stryker. And also in March is our state tournament. This year, they've moved the state tournament back a couple weeks, so that's going to be a little bit interesting. It may conflict with some schools' spring break, so the schools attending may be a little bit different. For those of you who, most of you were probably here last year when I talked about the NAS program and how it was implemented and stuff, but I'll just kind of give a brief refresher. Educators were looking for ways to improve student motivation, attention and behavior, and focus. So they got together and they developed the NAS program, and it started in Kentucky. They started in the fall of 2001, and it was originally launched in 21 Kentucky middle schools. Originally, they called it the Kentucky Archery Program in the schools. And their goal was to enroll 120 schools to teach target archery. And the reason they taught target archery was to make it universal, because this is a life skill that you can teach and then you can take it on further in your life. You can either still go on and compete, or many hunters and everything, obviously. Trying to keep it short and sweet. Some of it too was the fact that most of us live in rural communities where you have hunting and fishing and outdoor, but they tried to bring this to some of the urban schools, so to get urban kids involved in something like this too. And now there are over 14,000 schools in 5 countries that are involved in the NAS program. This is universal, and it's taught the same way in every school in every country. The equipment is the same. When they started the program, the bow that's used was the only bow available at that time, so they made that the universal bow. And kids, if you want to open your cases and let them out here, that way they can see the bows and the variety. The reason they went to a compound bow was because when they first started out, they thought that it took a lot of strength and ability to draw a recurve bow. So this way, being the compound bow, it's a little bit easier to draw, and it has a maximum draw length of 20 pounds, making it universal. You can adjust it down for younger kids that start out. You can take it around and show them. These kids all have their own bows. The bows that we have at school are the same, but a lot of the kids, after they get involved a little bit, they want their own. And you can go online and you can design them however you want with different colors and different strings and different cams and everything. They come up with some pretty neat combinations. None of the bows have any sights or anything on them. And if you look on Dylan's bow and Serenity's bow, which are camouflage, the front part of it has to be covered so that there are no markings on it that you might use as a sight or something. Some of the questions that, like I said, they asked, I guess I answered the first one. It said, why does NASP use the Genesis bow? In 2002, when NASP was started, the Genesis bow was the only universal draw length bow available, and the NASP program adopted that to keep it fair for everybody involved. Yes, ma'am? NASP is National Archery in the Schools program. Sorry. Yeah, after it was developed in Kentucky, and it was the Kentucky Archery Program, then when it became universal into more states, then they changed the name. NASP. Yep. And the arrow that we use, it says, why does NASP use only one type of arrow? One bow, one arrow keeps the program fair and on a level playing field for everyone.
Because like on this side, yeah, like the branches, like maybe like that, you can use as a reference site.
And then these are the arrows that are used. They come in all different colors with different colored fletching, etc. They're an aluminum arrow. The tips of them are ground in a certain way. And all of these competitions are shot indoors in gymnasiums. As I started to say, the tips are ground a certain way so that if they happen to hit the floor, they just bounce off.
Is that universal too?
Yes, this is
Exactly the same?
exactly the same arrow. It's made by Easton. It's called an 1820 aluminum arrow.
Is that what Robin Hood used or no?
Probably a little bit more technically advanced. But we have had some kids, as we call Robin Hood them. We had a student, one of the first couple years that we had the program, somebody had an arrow in the target and he hit it right there, and we kept it for a long, long time. I think it's gone now, but yes.
How many yards does the arrow go, and what does it hit when it, is it, I always think of straw bales, but I don't think you have those in there.
No, we have different kinds of targets now. The ones that we have, our Hicksville Foundation last year helped us to purchase targets from a place called American Whitetail, which is down in Ferdinand, Indiana. They developed this target basically for hunters to practice at home or target shooters to practice at home, but they migrated it over into the NASP program. It's like a polyfoam target, has a face on it with numbers, obviously, to score with. Excuse me. They shoot at 10 meters and 15 meters. They'll shoot a practice round at 10 meters and then 3 scoring rounds, and then a practice round at 15 meters and 3 scoring rounds there. They shoot 5 arrows at a time, and a perfect score is 300. So if you get a 10, the center is a 10. So perfect score would be 300. I've not seen that yet in person.
Are there handicaps established anywhere along?
No, there's no handicaps or anything like that. No,
Okay.
no. But speaking of handicap, there are handicap students that shoot archery. That's what makes archery universal to everybody. You don't have to be 6'3" and weigh 250 pounds. We have, 2 years ago, we had a girl in a wheelchair that shot at the end of our shooting line. And a few years ago, I also read in the news that the champion at our state archery shoot was a girl in a wheelchair. So anybody can do it. Yes,
How many pounds pull? You say 20 pounds?
20 pounds max, yep.
Boy, the one I had here was pretty stiff.
That was probably a full pull, yeah. Yeah. But you can, it's got adjustment on it that you adjust with a hex key and turns it down to about 2 pounds or something like that. And we have them at all lengths. When we start out young kids, they start out, just so they can pull it back, and sometimes it barely makes it there. But as they get older and stronger and use these muscles and develop the muscles, then we turn it up on them, so. Yes?
How fast would the arrow, at full bore, how fast would that arrow move?
I can't tell you exactly. I'm not a, if I have one of these kids calculate that maybe. Yes.
I don't know if you said or not, Rob, you said the arrows are all the same, but they use different lengths?
No, they're
Okay,
all
so
the
it's all
same.
the same way.
They're all the same.
Okay.
And if you go to any archery store or like a hunting archery place and talk to all those guys that are really into that and everything, they will tell you that this arrow is not designed for a 20-pound bow, but it's all designed for safety purposes. They don't want the arrow flying Mach 9 down there. Everything in NASP is designed for safety. The way they teach it, the way they shoot, the commands, everything, and they have never had an accident. They said it's safer than any athletic sport that uses a ball except table tennis. That's in my notes. I want the kids to introduce themselves. They're going to introduce themselves, tell you what grade they're in, when they got started in archery, how long they've been in, and what they like about archery.
I'm Emma Payne. I've been in archery since 4th grade, so about 7 years. And I got started because my sisters were doing it, and my dad is a coach. So I thought, if I was there, I might as well do it too. And I don't know, I really like being able to shoot at stuff, I guess.
You ever go deer hunting?
A couple times, or not a photo.
My name is Angela Betts. I'm also a sophomore. I started archery last year. I was meaning to join it for years, and I finally got around to it with my brother. My favorite part about archery would definitely be kind of the feeling that you get when you're shooting, because you have to be really patient about it. You can't just pull back and release, and that's something that, I don't know, kind of brings a calm to me that I enjoy.
Hello, my name is Dylan Meek. I'm a freshman. I joined archery in the 5th grade, I think, maybe. One thing I love about archery is when you go to the tournaments, there's multiple schools there, so you get to communicate with other schools. Also, it's just fun to shoot things.
Hi, my name is Serenity Graves. I'm an 8th grader, so I'm not yet at high school like everyone else, but almost, just about a semester. And I started archery in 4th or 5th grade, whichever year you start for the first time. And I started because my brother was already a member, and I went to all the tournaments, and my dad was a coach, so they kind of influenced me. And what I like most about archery is getting to meet all people from all different schools, and having an outlet with my dad to spend time together. And now that Quentin has graduated, it's just me and my dad, and I don't have to worry about him.
Yes.
You mentioned they have 5 arrows. Now, is there a time limit that or how is it that they shoot those all at one time, or?
They have, when you go to the line, everything is by whistle commands. They'll blow, the person who's in charge of the whistles blows 2 whistles. 2 whistles means get bow. The students will get their bow and they will go to the shooting line and they will stand there with their bow on their toe and wait until they get the command to shoot. When they get that command to shoot, which is 1 whistle, then they have 2 minutes to shoot those 5 arrows at the target. When they're done shooting, then they go back and rack their bow and stand behind the waiting line.
They do all their practice in the gym?
No, actually, where we practice at, the area that we have is the mezzanine, which is up behind the big side of the bleachers when the bleachers are pushed forward. And we can only put about 6 targets. We used to shoot with 5, but we crowd 6 in there so we can shoot 12 kids at a time. As our club grows, we try and shoot as many as we can at a time. So
Practice every day, yeah?
we practice, because we share the mezzanine during the winter season with the wrestlers, and then sometimes the baseball and softball players are up there. Our club is big enough that we have to split it up into elementary, high school, and middle school. So the elementary practice is Wednesday morning, the high school Thursday morning, and the middle school Friday morning. And then on Saturdays, we start at 9 in the morning and we divide it up, high school, middle school, elementary. When we were smaller, obviously, it's nice because you get to shoot more, but numbers are good, you know. So, but we are very blessed that our administration and our community and our coaches help support our program. I listen to other schools and some of the woes that they have when they fight with coaches or fight against their administration and things like that. But I am so blessed to be able to coach these kids and to be in a school district that supports us, because it's great for the kids. I mean, and I've always told the kids, I'm not so much about bringing home trophies and hardware, which is great when the kids do, but I like to see the kids from the time they start, they're scared to death and they're up there and the arrows are flying everywhere. And then by the time they're done at the end of one season, they've gone to a tournament, they've hung out and they've met other kids and they get confidence, and you can just see in their demeanor at the line how much more confident they are at the end of the season, and then as the years go on too. Sometimes when they get older, we lose a few of them to other sports, but yes.
Should we have any concern because all these kids said they like to shoot things?
As I said, it's safe. It's safe. As long as you don't step in front of them when they do.
They got Keith's picture on one of the targets?
No, we don't. Because our administration is supportive, and that you don't know how huge that is, really.
Did you ever get Keith to hold an apple on his head?
No, we took volunteers, but nobody volunteered.
Hey, these two volunteered, you got any apples?
Demonstration.
Does anybody, yes?
Yeah, I got a couple questions quick here. How big is the target, and then the target, and then if they miss the whole target, what's the protection,
There's a curtain draped behind the target. I don't know, the targets are probably 3 by 3.
What kind of curtain is it anyway?
It's a heavy mesh kind of curtain, yeah. Yeah, I've never seen an arrow go through a curtain, maybe over it sometimes. But,
If I get there tonight, I was gonna look and see if there's any pits in the cement walls.
There is, if you go up in the mezzanine, there are a few of those, yeah, where it's gone over a target. We have, I suppose I could dog on Claire Carrier, who graduated with my daughter, Michaela, a couple of years ago. She was in the club when it first started out, and we've always had a running joke. There's an exit sign up there. She hit the exit sign earlier. We always joke that that's her exit sign. She never quite lived that down. She got very good.
Did you mark it?
Yeah.
Well, to one of the students, what's the difference of your reference points between 30 meters and 15 meters? I would assume you're holding it a lot higher on the 30 meters, and how much higher are you holding that, whatever your reference point is? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it kind of just depends on where your reference point is. Like, mine doesn't really change because I aim at the reflection of the target. I don't know. It's weird. I basically aim at the floor. I don't know. Why, but mine doesn't really change them. But
for like mine, for 10 meters, I'll be aiming at the exact center of the target because that's just how I've always done it. And then when I move to 15, I'll move up probably a good 4 inches or so.
4 inches, yeah.
That's just mine though. Some people change it differently. Some people might not change it at all like Emma.
That depends on where your bow set up too.
And a lot of it depends on the consistency of your release. You know, they don't have any releases or anything. They are allowed to use gloves and finger tabs, but they aren't allowed to use any kind of releases or anything.
You got any potential robin woods around?
We have some pretty good archers, we really do. We lost some good ones a couple years ago because those were the kids that were at the very beginning when the club started. But we have some good kids, and I've seen in our elementary kids, I've seen some really good kids. We have a Morgan, the one that placed first there, she's a fifth grader, sixth grader this year. She started last year. She's been shooting well enough that she shoots on the high school team. She qualifies on the high school team. Look, younger kids can shoot up on a team, but you can't shoot down. So, and right now, being a club sport, we can do that. There's talk that the OHSAA wants to make it an official team sport, but we'll have to see how they manage that when they take over.
That in the Olympics, so they ought to make it.
Yeah. This is just basically being a club sport. This was designed to be universal for every kid to be on a level, the same level of competition. You know, once you get into the Olympic stuff, then you get into all the stabilizer bars and sights and all that kind of stuff, and it gets way too technical. You know, but this is just, like I said, you don't have to be a jock to be able to do this. You have little kids that are doing this and big, tall, burly people that are doing it too, so. Yes?
Did someone ask why it's not a sport yet? I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought I heard that, I'm sorry. Because wasn't it, I think the state's actually looking into making it an OHSAA recognized sport, but then they're dealing with the national support because the state wants to make it a sport because of revenue and money and stuff. So it's a battle over how much money it generates.
Yeah.
So I don't see it becoming a OHSAA recognized sport for some time.
Yeah, because they're going to have to, my personal opinion, and this is only my opinion, I think if the OHSAA takes it over, if they make it a varsity sport, then obviously your elementary and junior high kids will not be involved. So I think NASP may still survive as what it is, but then the OHSAA will make the varsity sport something different. Just like you have regular volleyball versus club volleyball and travel softball versus regular softball and stuff like that. So. But that's only my opinion.
I was just gonna ask them, being veterans, how many arrows practice do you, with your time and everything, how many arrows do you like to shoot during your practice schedule?
I guess until your fingers start hurting, you can't
So
really
you shoot a lot, as much as you can. Like,
Yeah.
100,000.
We go through a lot of arrows and a lot of targets. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.